Jay here or no?
You're two just past. Not this year. You're out by. Then you have a. Yep.
Okay, I can say. Figure it out. All right. We'll figure it out.
Get that running. Yes, think of that. I mean, it's gonna be hard anyways. Yeah, I'm ready to, but Patty. Well, because I guess. So you want to follow now?
No worries. I understand. Yeah, that's crazy.
I can see it now. Okay. He's one of the wells that are out there. Man, I keep getting around to knock on your door and see. At least 300. Oh, yeah, out there's.
There we go.
Well, in case let me get that out. Because I know how to make.
All right, guys, we'll go ahead and get started. It is, well, just switch to 10:01. Good morning, everybody. Has everybody had a chance to look over their packet? We do have a quorum. Everybody is here this morning. Thank you. Next month, Casey won't be here, so he has let us know that, so we know he's not going to be here next month. Is there anybody else
Planning to be here.
planning on being here? Okay, we should be good. Would anybody like to make a motion to accept the staff report? Is there any changes?
I'll make a motion. We accept the staff report.
I'll second that.
Perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And did everybody have a chance to look through the minutes from the December 14th meeting we had?
Saw no changes.
No changes? I didn't see anything crazy. Okay, do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
Make a motion, we accept the minutes from last month's meeting.
Thank you.
A second.
First and a second, any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, Eric, I think is joining us via Zoom this morning. I don't know if I can see him on there yet or not. I'm not sure. So Megan, do you want to go over as far as what happened at the commissioner meeting with the other hearings that we had from last month?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
So last month we had our 4 public hearings. Sunrock, the conditional use for the gravity quarry was approved as presented and recommended by you guys. Salmon Run subdivision final plat was also approved, has been turned in. I've been contacted by the owner and he has sold both lots on it. So that's a good thing. They're moving quickly with that one. The Volsic subdivision final plat was also approved, and we got lots of thanks for getting all the signatures in a timely fashion on that one. So thank you. And the Jenner Wyoming LLC zone map amendment agricultural to include the MD2 overlay was also approved as well.
Perfect. Good deal. Well, we can go ahead and move into hearing 1 if everybody is ready for that. Mike Thompson with Schlumberger, a variance is what they are applying for.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Our first public hearing we have today is for a variance on Lagoon subdivision. As Madam Chair mentioned, it is a variance for the proposed lot frontage on lot 3. It's a They're proposing to do an 80-foot frontage versus the 100-foot frontage that is required per our regulations. A little bit of background here, this property is located at the current address of 45 Lagoon Road. West Side Water and Sewer provides the sewer to the existing building. City of Rock Springs provides the water. It is within Fire District number 1. Rocky Mountain Power and Dominion Energy also service the property as well.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
No, no worries.
Got the power plugged in, but forgot the HDMI cord. Here's the project location. As you can see, it's just off of County Road 112, Lagoon Road. And a little bit of background, Mike Thompson is the applicant on behalf of Schlumberger, who has since taken over WH Energy Rocky Mountain Inc. in a series of several mergers that has happened on the property. He is also working with JFC to subdivide this existing site that has 6 buildings on it. They are proposing to do 3 lots of heavy industrial subdivision. The lots range in size from 5 acres to roughly 17 acres. Proposed lots 1 and 2 are accessible directly off of Lagoon Road, and proposed lot 3, which this variance is requested for, is also accessible off of Lagoon Road, but it will be accessed by a private road located on the lot. So lot 3 is the one in the southwest corner of the final plat here. We will jump. Here's the site photos of when we were on site to post the public notice. And the actual variance is being requested from Sweetwater County zoning regulations, section 5G, I2 heavy industrial. The minimum lot width on the front line of a lot is 100 feet. What they're proposing with this variance is to have it changed to 80 feet. And there are 3 review criteria for a variance. The first being there are special circumstances or conditions fully described in the commission and board's findings, which are peculiar to the land or building for which the variance is sought and do not apply generally to land or buildings in the neighborhood and have not resulted from any act of applicant subsequent to the adoptions of the zoning resolution. As I've stated before, there are 3 existing access points off of Lagoon Road. The access furthest west is currently being used to access the largest building, which would be located on the proposed lot 3. Where this access is currently located, they would have to cross the proposed lot 2 as they are proposed in the final plat process. During the preliminary plat process, it was proposed to have a private road called Lagoon Court Road be the access to this proposed lot 3. The required 80-foot right-of-way for a local street on I2 zone land with inside the growth management area was adhered to at this time. Since then, they have proposed to drop the private local street due to concerns with possible ownership down the road. They were concerned with basically making sure that road was attached to the lot in just subsequent transactions, and have since requested this variance. As they proposed to keep this 80-foot width as was required in the earlier stages. I2 lots typically require this 100-foot lot frontage per our current regulations. Criteria number 2, for reasons set forth in the commission's and board's findings, the circumstances or conditions are such that strict application of the provisions of Sweetwater County zoning resolution would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of the land or building that grant the adjustment is necessary or the reasonable use thereof, and the adjustments are granted in the minimum adjustment that will accomplish this purpose. The proposed access to lot 3 would be private and would be maintained by the owner of lot 3 and would run with the property. The proposed frontage of 80 feet does meet the required standards for a local road within the I-2 zoned land as it is located within the growth management area, which subsequently would make the frontage to lot 3 only 20 feet less than the required 100 feet that is required per our current regulations. It's a very minor adjustment, but also adheres to other portions of our regulations. And the last and final criteria, the granting of this variance is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning resolution and will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. The proposed private road would be constructed to fire code standards. They're still proposing to do this. There is also ample room for access and the local private road if the proposed variance for 80-foot frontage was approved. When we put it out for public and agency comments, we received 2 comments back. Kinder Morgan does not have any facilities within the area, so they have no concerns. And John Bunning Company is across the way from them, and they have no objections to this variance either. And the land use staff recommends approval of the variance as presented. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I don't believe we have anybody from Schlumberger or JFC here today. We will still open it up for public comment. If there's anybody, I guess, because we possibly could have someone via Zoom. Anybody out there in favor of the variance? Do we have anybody out there against? Any in general comments from the public? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public comment portion and open it up to the board. Does anybody on the board have any questions regarding the variance?
Engineering, the county engineering didn't have any issues with going to 20 feet less.
No, he did not have any. Neither Gene nor Eric Bingham had any problems with the 80-foot that they're proposing. As we've mentioned before, everything fit when they were proposing it as just a private road. All they're doing right now is incorporating the road into the existing lot.
Okay. All right. Hearing nothing else, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the variance for Schlumberger on lot 3?
I'll make a motion to approve the variance for section 5.G to allow for 80-foot frontage as opposed to 100-foot.
Thank you, Rob. Second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mark. Any further discussion, questions before we take a vote? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Our second hearing this morning is Schlumberger as well. It's the final plat for the Lagoon subdivision.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our second public hearing today is for the actual Lagoon subdivision final plat. The applicant is also Mike Thompson, who is with Schlumberger as well. A lot of the background, which I talked about previously, applies to this hearing as well. But I do want to go into a little bit more detail, particularly with the mergers that have taken place. To my knowledge, there have been three mergers that have taken place. The latest deed we have on record here at the courthouse is WH Energy Rocky Mountain Inc. And what we have proposed to JFC and Schlumberger is that they record these series of mergers just because there's no other documents of record. Also, something else that none of these came up is with the title commitment that is required per the final plat review process. And since these are not recorded documents within Sweetwater County, this information wasn't easily accessible to the title companies as well. And we think it's very important just for people 20 years down the line to know kind of the history of what happened. And we did our due diligence in looking into this.
Yes, it should be
property.
like something changed in legislation that surveys and all these things need to be recorded because it is hard 20 years later, 5 years later. I mean, it's hard.
So the first merger that has taken place is from WH Energy Rocky Mountain Inc., and they have since merged with WH Energy Services LLC. This happened on December 31st, 2014 at 4 p.m. We still do not have documents even provided with this. I know JFC has had a hard time getting their hands on documents, let alone original documents to be recorded or certified documents, depending in which fashion they are trying to record things here at the courthouse. We have been provided with a certificate of merger that goes from WH Energy Services LLC to when it was merged into Smith Internationals Inc., also on December 31st, 2014 at 4:30 p.m. We have also been provided a secretary certificate dated December 17th, 2021 that states Schlumberger Technologies Corporation and Smith International Inc. are both owned by Schlumberger Holdings Corporation, which in turn are ultimately owned by Schlumberger Limited. This has been a little bit of an interesting process that we're trying to do our due diligence and everything. So as stated, we have recommended that all these merger documents be recorded. This has not happened yet. They're still trying to get their hands on all the required documents, whether it's the original documents. Most of these will be coming from the state of Delaware. So it's taking a little bit of time getting their hands on it. And they could also be, in my conversations with the ladies in the land records department, they could have certified copies of the original documents recorded as well. So it's, we've left it up to them just as long as these documents are recorded and then subsequently noted on the plat for future people coming after us. And the other thing that the land use staff happened to come across late last week was a transaction that has taken place on the property that is proposed to being subdivided for the Lagoon subdivision. Per book 1,243, page 2,985, it was recorded on December 20th, 2021 at 11:04 a.m. and is a special warranty deed from Smith International Inc. to Questar Gas Company. The meets and bounds legal in Exhibit B describes the proposed Lot 2 of this Lagoon subdivision. The land use staff is currently working with the county's attorney's office to discuss this matter and how to proceed. Not much details can be discussed here, but what we're looking at is a potential illegal subdivision being created prior to the actual final plat of the Lagoon subdivision. With the short notice of finding things out, we have not been able to come to a consensus on how to proceed. And we are still actively looking into what to do with this portion. With the documents that were provided, I will continue to present the hearing with other information, and we will discuss once it comes time to recommendations on what we think we need to do.
Most likely we need to table or postpone it till we know for sure what we've got going on. Yeah. Okay.
This is the copy of the deed that was found. You guys all have this in your packet. It does include two portions of the certificate of mergers. One thing I do want to point out is it stops at Smith International Corporation. One thing we have been told and promised in phone calls and emails is that Schlumberger is who will be signing off on the final plat. I do want to make of record that I find this to be very interesting. I know that these are all sister companies at the end, but I do find it very interesting that Smith International Corporation is the one who signed over this deed when Schlumberger is the one who's proposed to sign on the final plat. So this is also a point of clarification we are trying to figure out as well at this time. Same zoning map. Exact same plat. The site photos for the public notice as well. And we only received one agency comment also from Kinder Morgan stating that they don't have any facilities within the area. I had several comments with the first round of the final plat, most of which have been addressed other than the first two, and I'll just go over the first two. The other ones were pretty minor in comparison. I requested, please provide all certificates of merger that have taken place from WH Energy to Schlumberger Holdings Corporation after they have been recorded at the courthouse. Please note this ownership exchange in the note section on the final plat with recorded book and pages. This has not yet been completed and is still a little bit up in the air on how far back we need to go with all of this. And the second note I have is we will need to have a plan for the financial guarantee by December 30th, 2021 for one of the three means listed in Sweetwater County subdivision regulations, section 9A1. Please provide this as well as a completed subdivision improvements agreement to Eric Bingham no later than December 30th. I did not receive completed documents for the bond that was proposed for the financial means of guarantee, nor a completed final subdivision improvements agreement until last Friday, early last Friday morning. And we are still reviewing this as well as everything else that have been found out in the last few days. My other comments were pretty simple and straightforward, and those have been addressed with no problems. And at this time, the staff is recommending tabling or postponing this hearing due to pending legal review on the documentation that was found. This is something we are currently and actively working to try and figure out the best means necessary. And I'm going to defer to County Attorney John DeLeon to explain the difference in tabling and postponement so we can discuss the best process to proceed forward.
Thank you, Megan.
So you have your options. One option is to, you could approve or deny the plat today. That is an option. Both of those are options that you have. Another option that you have, knowing that there's a special warranty deed, which would, in theory, separate the land of the plat to make it below the amount required before the process is approved. So there's different ways to look at that deed. One way of looking at it is that it's improper. You could look at it as invalid. And as Megan has identified, that's something that the applicant may want to look into correcting. And so if you looked at it as simply invalid, that would be a potential justification saying, okay, we're going to approve it today since you can't, it's an illegal subdivision and doesn't qualify. That being said, the recording shows something different. So it might make sense to postpone or table. When you table something, typically you table something for the same meeting, and or there's some variability by Robert's rules where it could be the next meeting. Okay, tabling is usually a more specific time frame, whereas postponement is saying we don't know for sure. I know the staff wants to be as helpful as possible, move as quickly as possible, keep things moving as much as they can. At the same time, there hasn't been a conversation to say when, how long it will take. There's still some variables out there. And so tabling could get things accomplished sooner. Postponement does allow, and you could postpone it indefinitely, and it could still potentially come up at the next meeting. There are some notice components that were identified. I think there's a requirement for a plat that advertising being done twice within 30 days of the application. I think there's some rationale that that would still qualify. This would have been the application. So I don't know that there will be a need to re-advertise there. I will confer with everybody in land use and make sure that they are in agreement with that. That would be if staff wasn't in agreement with that, then that could extend the process out just a little bit as well. Again, another justification for you to consider postponement in your process. And again, what technique will be used to clean up some of that paperwork. I think staff has located some options for them to consider, but ultimately that'll be their decision. It could come before you again, and they could say, we considered it and we don't want to do anything different, and that'll be their choice. But I think the current staff recommendation is table or postpone, and there's certainly some additional reasons for the postponement process to be utilized in this case.
I got a question for you, Megan. Are they active about getting this resolved, or have you gotten good feedback from them?
So when I found out about the transaction that had taken place, I found out last Wednesday afternoon, and I sent out an email to John Edens with JFC and also Mike Thompson, who is the applicant. I have not heard back from anybody. I think everybody knew something had happened. Land use was just not made aware of this for whatever the case may be. I've been more concerned with trying to figure out the appropriate actions that need to take place in order to keep moving forward with this. But there's several things that, as you guys have been made aware of, that are needing to be taken into account for this decision to be made. I have not heard from them saying that they don't want to get this fixed. I know just as this subdivision was presented earlier, actually last year, they had wanted to get this built and done as quickly as possible. We are definitely not wanting to stop them. We were just proposed or found out about the illegal subdivision, and we'll subsequently have to deal with that prior to moving forward and getting everything taken care of in the best way possible. But I don't think there's been any reason that they don't want to get this taken care of that has been presented to me.
Yeah, because I know some of those buildings are in the process of being sold out there right now before this is all completed. I hate to throw a wrench in their works, but also we want to make sure that this is all above board and it's not an illegal subdivision. So I was just curious to see if they're they're actively participating in getting this resolved.
We have heard we had a question from Blaine Tate, who is the real estate agent, as far as I'm aware, for all the buildings out there a few months back on how to proceed with purchase of the property. And we recommended, I don't have the exact section of code right in front of me right now, but per Wyoming state statute, you can do a contract for deed that would be approved upon final approval of the final plat. That was what we proposed for them to use. We are not an office that writes up contracts or anything with that. We just look at the facts to do the final plat subdivision process. So that was what was recommended at the time.
I just kind of, you're finding this out the last minute about them not being in compliance. And I think they've got you under the gun, and I don't like that. I'd rather have a legal subdivision, my personal opinion. I don't want to be having you, they're not going to have this done, but these properties are being sold. So we've got them under the barrel, so to speak. And I don't like that. I like you have the time to get all your ducks in a row and make sure it's legal. That's my personal opinion. So that's all I got to say.
Well, and it does need to be above board. I mean, they can't sell and do things before they've not gone through the proper chain of events, which they are very aware of and have been very aware of.
Yeah.
I think if we table it, This is my own opinion. I think if we table it, I don't know that that's going to put any more pressure on them. I think it does on us. And I think we need to postpone it and not put a timeline on it. If we get it next hearing, we get it next hearing, or if we get it in 6 months, we get it in 6 months. You know, we can't have an illegal subdivision sitting out there when we're trying to clean all of these things up and there's no reason for it. I mean, there just is no reason for it.
Is it, John, would it give them more incentive if we postponed it without putting a timeline on it for them to get done? Because they're trying to sell these too, but I'd like to have them, the emphasis on them to get their ducks in a row for Megan so we can get this resolved. I mean, what's our better option here?
So the postponement, as the chair identifies, does put the responsibility in their lap to
Yeah.
get the process moving as quickly as possible and to be able to say, okay, we're ready and we've addressed this issue. Or, you know, the alternative is they could say, we don't find anything wrong with this, and they could present that. There's nobody here today to articulate
Exactly.
what the, you know, if it was, you know, incidental, if there was, you know, what were the causes behind
But if we
that?
postponed it, that would give them, they would put the ball in their court that they get this resolved and not having us to table it and then have to
That's correct.
revisit. I like postponement personally.
Does anybody else have any questions, comments that they would like to add?
If we postpone it, I want to make sure we don't just leave it in an open-ended thing they could drag out forever.
Well,
You know?
ultimately, if it's postponed, it could be. I mean,
Yeah.
and
And
that's
if
on
we,
them though.
you know,
That's not on
postpone,
us.
give them 90 days or 180 days to,
Well, then would they just not have to reapply and redo?
and then would it just die? Would it go away?
Yeah, right. If it's not addressed, then I mean, it's in their
Their court.
lap to get it addressed, get it brought before, and get it
And it just, so it's just not something that's hanging out there forever, you know, just.
Well,
Have to put a
I find
timeline on it.
deadlines work. It makes
do-
me, you
Which-
do
know.
not
but-
have to put a timeline on it.
no, because ultimately, I mean, we want to help them get the subdivision done. I agree, but really this is on them and this is their deal, not ours. So if they don't ever get it done, that is,
But it's
to me,
still-
is on them, not our, as a board, problem. I don't know of any other
It's-
word. I don't know that that's correct.
Because we want all the i's dotted and the t's crossed.
Madam Chair.
Mhm.
I
One-
agree with the postponement, but it's your staff recommendations is tabling. So is that going to hinder anything?
Staff recommendation at the time, this was on Friday. I was not aware, I'm still learning all the Roberts Rules of Order.
Oh, okay.
I was not
Okay.
aware of the difference between
Options.
tabling versus postponement. So either way, it would not affect our recommendation, whichever way we go. One point of clarification I would like to add to this is I don't see this being as an indefinite thing. As Casey pointed out, they're actively trying
sell.
to sell these properties. I think I've not had conversations exactly with them because I don't have the tools right now to tell them this is the order that we need to do to clean things up. We're actively trying to figure out that process, but I do not think this is going to be an indefinite thing that never gets taken care of.
I don't either. No, they want to sell those properties, so they'll get it.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Hi, Eric.
Hello, good morning. So the other thing is they have the incentive that it's an illegal issue going on. So it's not something that I would see. I think postponement's definitely the best way to go. You have the statutes that back up the legal department if they drag it on too long, but I don't see that being an issue. That's all I have, Matt.
I've got a question. So the preliminary plat's been approved and that's got a time frame on it as well. By the time the final plat's got to be approved. So if we postpone it, if we just postpone it to how long the preliminary plat's valid, then it wouldn't go on forever. It would just be, it'd almost be just like a resubmittal of the final plat at that point.
I could be wrong on a postponement, though. We typically don't put a deadline. Is that correct, John?
You can,
Okay.
but I would say, when you say typically, I haven't seen it where one is put, but you can. You
Okay.
can say postponed. If you postpone to anything beyond the next meeting, then it would be termed a postponement. You can postpone to a definite date, or you can postpone indefinitely. Typically, it's simply identified as a motion to postpone. You don't have to necessarily refer to it as motion to indefinitely postpone. You can say motion to postpone. If there's no date attached, then it's indefinite in nature.
Okay,
If there's
that's what I thought.
submittal process plan lapse, they can resubmit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
They could resubmit, and then that notice requirement would kick back in
Sure.
for sure, because it would be a new application. And you
Yeah.
you have to advertise twice within the time frame of that application.
John, one question of clarification. If we do go with a postponement and let's say we were able to come to a conclusion of how to proceed by the next meeting, we are okay not worrying about the advertisement window, correct?
I will confer
Okay.
with your office. The application would be today. And so that would be, and that's the requirement. My initial reading is that you have to have the two advertisements within 30 days of the application. That has been done. It's simply being continued. So it would still qualify. Again, that will be clarified with staff.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions? Do we have a motion to postpone public hearing number 2 for Schlumberger on the final plat?
I make a motion that we postpone and postpone number 2 for Schlumberger subdivision.
Thank you.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any other final discussion or questions? Okay. All those in favor for postponing public hearing number 2, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Perfect. Thank you, guys. I know that one was a little tricky. Public hearing number 3. We talked about this last month. We just needed that other advertisement in the paper. We had only got one and then it got missed, the second one. So this is just for the land use department, the language amendment for the International Fire Code that we had gone over last month. Now it's been publicized for the correct amount of time, and we would just be going through and what changes were made that we had gone through last month and adopting that. Did you want to go through it, Megan, or Eric, do you feel like it's necessary for us to go back through it since we did last month?
Madam Chair, all that's in there are the necessary code sections that are required to change in our code. You might ask, why don't we just say to the most recently adopted International Fire Code so we don't have to do this every 3 years?
3 years.
And the reason is the sections do change. And so you do have to do this every 3 years.
Yeah.
So it basically, unless Jim wants to add anything, it's just the code changes that need to happen in order to adopt the International Fire Code. Permitting is exempt, so we're not requiring fire permits and things. So
Mhm.
that's not required. So that's really about it. And then when you get into the areas outside the growth management plan and for like a single residence in the middle of nowhere, you don't need to build a 20-foot size driveway. You can actually have a 14-foot double track all-weather surface, that doesn't need to support a giant fire apparatus. So those are some of the things that changes we always adopt as we go every 3 years. But as required, if we want to maintain home rule, we have to adopt the fire code. So that's all I have, Madam Chair, unless Jim wants to add anything.
Thank you. Jim, is there anything you would like to add or that has changed? I know you went through last month, quite a few of those changes with us.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. What we went over last month was the significant changes in the fire code. Now we're looking at the verbiage that's in the actual Sweetwater County Developmental Code. The changes would reflect where the sections within the code have changed. When they update a code, they move sections around, they add things and stuff. So we've got to call those sections out if we're going to stand by them and inspect by them. So all these are really verbiage changes to say, if it was section 107 last year, it might be section 108 this year. So we're making all the corrections that the 2021 code is accurate, and that's what we're adopting. And then, like Eric said, it gives us the ability from the state fire marshal's office to have jurisdiction within Sweetwater County to do those codes. Yeah, enforce those codes. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Did you want to, Megan, go through all of the changes in the presentation? It's pretty, pretty fun stuff. I understand. If not, we can open up, to public hearing, to the audience to see and go through the motion of it. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, let's go ahead. We will open it up to the public if there's anybody in favor of the language amendment. If there's anybody against the language amendment to keep us in compliance, please speak now. Anybody in general? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public comment portion. Open it back up to the board. If you have any other questions, it was really pretty straightforward, nothing crazy. Jim went over a ton last month with us. No,
Cut and
we're
dry.
good. It is pretty cut and dry. I like that. No. Do I have a motion to, for public hearing 3, the land use language amendment for the International Fire Code?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the language amendment for the International Fire Code
Thank you, Kelly.
for
I'll second that.
Any final discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Perfect. That works. Megan or Eric, do you guys have anything additional you'd like to add that we didn't go over, or any other business?
I do not have any other business, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I don't have anything.
Okay, perfect. All right, guys, hearing none, we will adjourn. It is 10:40.